Okay, have the little "you are live" sign flashing, which means that hopefully all of you out there in YouTube land or on the internet can see me and hear me. Hello, good evening. Thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to be kicking off this series of caffeine chats for our incoming new students and their families for this summer, for summer 2021. So all of our new students, our first years, our provisionals, and our transfer students that are starting at TCNJ in the fall 2021 semester. So huge thanks to everybody for saying hello and give me a little thumbs up that you can hear me. But my name is Lindsay Barnt. I am the director for the Office of Student Transitions here at TCNJ, and we have a lot to cover tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into it. And because this is our first one, I'm just going to glance over here. I've got my little schedule over here. We have a lot to go over, but I thought it would be helpful to at least give a quick introduction to who I am, what my office does to support your student and you during these hectic couple of months that is transitioning to TCNJ, and then really kind of dig into a lot of your questions, which were so helpful. Thank you to everybody who submitted questions in advance of tonight's chat. So I'm Lindsay Barnt, Director, Office of Student Transitions. I am a staff member first and foremost at TCNJ. I have been here now, in November, it will be 10 years, and I started in the first 4 years working in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions. So I recruited primarily out of state. Shout out to all of my out of state families, especially from Pennsylvania and Delaware, which is where I recruited, but I read applications, I did the recruitment process, I helped with yield events. So it was so helpful in the role that I am now because I know exactly what you have gone through for the past 18 to 24 months. And as a part of my responsibilities when I did work in admissions, is that I planned orientation. So I have an event planning background. That's where I came from when I came to TCNJ. And eventually they were like, we want somebody who is dedicated full time to thinking about how we can better the transition for our new families. It's such a really kind of critical point in the process for the student. And thankfully, I didn't do the worst job in the world. And they said, hey, would you like to do it? So I am now going on year 6 as the director for the Office of Student Transitions. I moved over into the Division of Student Affairs, and I get to 24/7, 365 focus on you and your student and making this very exciting but very scary process a little bit more digestible and manageable, and hopefully just reminding everybody of all the fun and all of the amazing things that are in store for your student at TCNJ over the next couple of years. So that's what I get to do here. I get to wear a different hat. I'm also a graduate student. So in 48 days, not that I'm counting, I will be done with my master's degree at TCNJ. I am in the School of Business earning my MBA, and it has really given me an awesome and completely different perspective into being working at TCNJ and being a student at TCNJ. And it's really lended itself to bettering me even in my role already, just as I've been a student. So I have that lens, which has been very helpful in working with families in my role. And then lastly, I am a parent, just like you. I have 2 little ones. They are, Jameson just turned 8 and finishing up 2nd grade. His last day of 2nd grade is tomorrow. And Kelly is 2.5. So I am just completely blown away at how quickly time goes even now, and they're young. And I can't even imagine what you all are thinking now that your little ones are not so little anymore and they're grown up and they're going off to school. So I have all those kind of unique perspectives, and they all make me at least help me do my job a little bit better if I didn't have them otherwise. So that's a little bit about me, the Office of Student Transitions. I think I mentioned this before. So this is all I do, right, is support you all and answering your questions. And we run all of the events on campus for new students. So orientation programs, our Welcome Week program, all of the marketing and communications comes from my office. So the Transition Times newsletters, we host these chats, the Roar booklet, the bright yellow one that you got in the mail, all of that came from me. And then I also have the best job in the world. I get to supervise 70 of our amazing undergraduate students who serve as transition leaders for your students, right? So our orientation leaders, which work with our first year and our provisional students, and our Griffins who work with our transfer students. I get to do all of the training for them and just watching them grow in their roles and being great leaders on campus. And it's been super rewarding. So I get to do some other fun stuff too, but that's really the big stuff. And it's really just important to have a little introduction to kind of what my office and why, how we're here and how we can support you. And we're going to talk a lot more about that later. And then lastly, the history of the caffeine chats. So they were brand new last year and they emerged out of necessity, right? We were dealing in the middle, still are, but more in the middle of a horrible global pandemic, and everybody had to pivot, and they had to pivot very quickly. And I started these up as a way to be able to be as transparent as possible and to share information with the parents, right, and with the families, and students would obviously be listening in as well. And after the very first one last year, I did it at the end of June. I was going back and taking a look at the calendar as I was preparing for tonight, and I said, oh my gosh, like immediately after the first one, I knew, like, light bulb moment, why wasn't I doing this for years before? Because it just made sense, right? I communicate to your student. Obviously, they're my first and foremost priority, but having you in the loop, you all being able to have information so that you can have really intentional conversations with your student, right? About, okay, well, Lindsay said you were doing this, like, have you gotten that done yet? Or she referenced this, like, can you share with me a little bit about what that's about? You're moving into more of a supportive role now, right? Less doing and more kind of encouragement. And that's helpful for you to have information from me on that. So they came out of necessity. Now, last year, I will say we did these always on Sunday nights, and I needed the caffeine. So they were caffeine chats specifically because I would tell everybody to bring a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. I'm a tea drinker, which is why they weren't coffee chats. And so then they went to decaf because I realized if I had a cup of regular caffeinated tea at 8 o'clock, given my personality, that I would never go to sleep. And now I can't even do decaf. So I'm not going to change the name of the name of it, but there was ice cream in this mug. Like 20 minutes ago, I had some before I came in, and I picked this mug in particular. Again, I got it at Disneyland back in 2017. We took Jameson there when he was 4, and again, just kind of speaking to the fact that where does the time go? And here we are in another cycle, and it's now your student who's coming to TCNJ. So I thought that was very appropriate. But no tea tonight, and we'll see how the rest of the cycle goes for sure. So. Okay, let's go ahead. And sorry, I just realized there was like somebody's hello comment on there for the whole time I was chatting. All right, some ground rules, and then we're going to dig into the information. First, as you already noticed, and I put this in the chat, YouTube has a chat feature, which is really great. You can post comments to other parents, post questions, all that kind of stuff. You just need to be logged into YouTube if you want to use that. So thank you to everybody who said hello so far and has gotten that chat started. That I'm sure we'll pick up as the coffee chats or caffeine chats go on. That being said, it's just me tonight. So please be patient. Every other week I have a guest speaker lined up, and I'm a little bit better at being able to answer questions in real time. But tonight I will keep one eyeball that way on my screen, but it might be a little bit tough. So I'll scroll back at the end to make sure I didn't miss any major questions that you all had. I'll general rule of thumb, super specific questions to your particular student, your particular situation. Though this is probably not going to be the right forum to ask those. So don't ever hesitate to send us an email. I'm going to throw it in there right now. My general inbox is studenttransitions@tcnj.edu. That's going to be the much more appropriate spot for, again, specific questions. All the general ones that were submitted, will be able to handle most of those tonight. All of these chats are available on YouTube afterwards, which is really great. So we ask for the RSVPs ahead of time, but you can save this YouTube link, and then that way, if something comes up and you can't make it at the last minute, or for whatever reason it is, you can always come back and reference them later and watch them later. So that's really helpful. I will say that the negative thing about using this streaming service is that I don't see you, so it's just me talking to myself seemingly over here, although I know that there's over 150 of you watching live right now. So I don't get to see you. The only way I get to interact with you is through the chat. But again, the pro is that it's available on the internet afterwards so that you can come back and reference it later, which is helpful. And then I just ask that you keep the chat mostly positive and respectful if we can. We have a troll or two that kind of pop in from time to time, but most of the time it's pretty good. It's a lot. It's very overwhelming. You can imagine all of the craziness and anxiety that was a lot last year. We're still feeling the effects of it, but as long as we can keep this a helpful space, that's what I really want first and foremost. I want people to be able that they can come on here and answer questions and get lots of good information. So that's the goal. Okay. enough intro stuff. That already lasted too long, and I only have 51 minutes left. And if you see here, I have a whole list of things to chat about. So first, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about kind of where we are now, right? So we are middle of June-ish, June 13th. Which again, feels like summer is already well almost halfway over. And we kind of kicked things off in the beginning of May. So a couple of bigger things to start. One, hopefully your student is checking their TCNJ email and they set it up. If they are not, you got a whole different set of issues to talk about. But that TCNJ email, and I said this back in the spring, if anybody joined me for any of the sessions that I did or any of my communications since then, the most important thing that your student can be doing right now is just checking that email every day or two, right? I am aware of probably about 80 to 85% of the emails that your student's getting. And I already know that there's a lot of information and deadlines and things they need to be checking up on, but that 10 to 15% over there, or 15 to 20% that I don't know, those are people like the academic departments. They might be sending information to their new students about X, Y, Z, A, B, whatnot. And then, occasionally a few others. So I know it's really important to check it, but I don't know everything that comes in. They really need to get into the habit of doing that. Now is the hardest time, right? It was hard in May for my transfer families and students because they were finishing up semesters at their previous institutions, and that was really busy. I am well aware that for my first year and my provisional families, they are smack dab in the middle of finals, probably proms, graduations. Hopefully most of you are able to have those in person and having some of those traditions come back this year. It's a very, very busy time, but if they check it every day or two, they're not going to get behind. They're not going to get overwhelmed. We are really intentional about sharing and distributing information in a really kind of sequential way throughout the summer so that everything is not very overwhelming for you, right? And an important piece to that is making sure that you're keeping up on that email. So that's a really important thing. The other one, I think the other huge thing that happened in May was placement testing. I know that most of my first year, my provisionals did an excellent job on the writing placement, which was required because I think they had over 98% of the students fill that out by the deadline. Awesome job. There were also, for some majors, depending on which major you are, potentially a calculus placement, either taking the exam or submitting ACT or ACT scores, and a second language if you have a second language requirement as a part of your major. So we have to do, and that was a really important thing that we did in May, because that information went to the departments to work on pre-registering your student for their fall classes. Whole nother bullet point on my agenda to chat with you about in a couple of minutes. But what I'm hoping to do, and I hope that this works okay, is I wanted to share my screen and talk to you and just really quickly walk through with you and quick glance at what our online orientation looks like. So your student was enrolled in NSO 55, which is an online orientation module that I created and I host it in Canvas. Now, Canvas is our course management system, right? All your classes are going to be showing up in Canvas. It's how we submit assignments. Sometimes lectures are posted there, files, group discussions. There's also collaboration tools, all sorts of features that faculty members at TCNJ can use. But it's essentially kind of their online home for their classes. And part of the reason I like hosting it in Canvas is because it's going to give your student an opportunity to kind of start to navigate and get an idea of what they're doing. The other really nice thing is that there's several other items over the summer that take place in Canvas as well. So the summer reading program, they're going to submit their summer reading assignment through Canvas. They did the writing placement already through Canvas for my first years and my provisionals. So really trying to get them a little bit comfortable so that day one is not going to be as overwhelming with their navigating a new system. And I actually think that a lot of high schools are starting to use Canvas, so maybe this is a moot point for any of you. So I'm going to walk you through. So online orientation, it's not a course. No professor, no calling me Dr. Lindsay or Dr. Barnes. I always get one of those and start cracking up, farthest from the truth. But it's really just an opportunity to streamline so that all of their information is in one beautiful spot and they can just click through and read it. How many of them are doing it? I don't know. I answer a lot of emails that say, hey, if you just go in and look at your online orientation, every single answer to your questions is listed in there somewhere, right? So I'm going to walk you through it just so that you have an idea of what it looks like if your student hasn't shared that with you already. There are two versions. So one is for my first years and my provisionals. The other is for the transfers. Minimal changes, or differences. The big difference is just how we do pre-registration, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. So let's see if my screen share works, and we'll have no way of knowing if this does. So somebody give me a thumbs up at some point if it's a yes. Okay, Chrome tab we're going to look at. Online orientation for first year students. Okay, so this is what it looks like, and I'll put it into student view so that you have a chance to see what your student sees, because there's a whole bunch of other stuff obviously on the back end. So this is the introduction to their online orientation. And over here on the left-hand side, the announcements are just whenever I send them an email through Canvas. And you'll see that most of the time it's just to notify them that other modules have opened up, or if I need to alert them of really important deadlines. All of these announcements go only to their TCNJ email, which is why it's really important that they continue to check that, because there's some offices at TCNJ can email both. I know, for example, like my newsletter can go to both their personal and their TCNJ email addresses, but a lot of our departments across campus and functions will only email them at the TCNJ one. So the announcements from Canvas will go there, and then their modules. So this is kind of how we communicate and share information for them throughout the summer. So you'll see right off the bat, welcome to online orientation. If you click on it, it will walk them through all of the different modules and when they open. So the first 3 modules for actually both our first years and our transfer students are open. And then the other really important thing, if you scroll down here and click to next, is here is the breakdown of all of the contact information for our academic schools. I'll explain why that's really important in a minute when I talk a little bit more about course registration. So if you scroll through, most of the time the department person and their name is listed right there. And then other times, some schools like education in particular, they have somebody who monitors that inbox and will field it to the appropriate department chair. And then I believe nursing, yes, science and nursing, health and exercise science, it's a general inbox that, again, those emails get distributed to various individuals to reach back out to the student. So it's a really helpful page if your student's looking to get in contact with any academic specific questions. And then of course, the next page is our non-academic offices. So all sorts of people out there who are willing and more than happy to answer questions for you or your student. And we just kind of list some of them here. These are obviously general inboxes. And then just with some subjects of the types of questions that you could be asking them potentially, right? So for example, if you have questions about billing, that's the student accounts address that you would use to email questions about that. So all of their contact information is in this introduction module, and then the modules are themed. So this module, placement testing, opened at the very beginning of May, and this included all of their information and the links on how to get to their placement testings to take those exams over the course of May. They were all open for, I believe, 3.5 weeks. So this was the writing placement. They scroll through, here was more information about the second language placement exam, and then of course calculus, or the math placement, was third, just to give you an idea of what those look like. And again, contact information on all those pages for students who had questions. And then the second module to open was course, I guess round 2. So those opened at the beginning of May. And then these last 2, this course registration module and the navigating TCNJ module, those both opened at the end of May. I believe it was the Tuesday after Memorial Day. Module 2, I'm going to talk a lot more detail about course registration in a minute, but very similar. I just walked them through with information and links. And then their navigating TCNJ, these were all of their non-academic kind of action items and things to do. So the ID card photo link is open. Every student, in order to have their TCNJ ID card, which they need, will have to submit a photo by the end of the month. So again, links to FAQs and questions, emails with questions or concerns. The pre-entrance health requirements, I am going to touch a little bit on vaccines here at some point in our chat. But again, just explanations on where to submit your photos, the deadlines, same thing for all of the information regarding our housing and dining services. So I just wanted to really quickly give you a look, because I think, if your student shared it with you, great. And if they didn't, let me see if I can come back. Oh, I'm back. Yay, that worked. Okay. Thank you, Larissa, for my thumbs up. Sometimes I'm just going blind out there. I don't know. So I really just wanted to share that with you to give you an idea of what it looks like from their perspective. The online orientation is really helpful. And again, 90% of the questions are going to get answered in there, and then subsequent modules will open as the summer progresses. So good conversation to have with your student over dinner. Maybe say, hey, I saw online orientation. That looks pretty cool if you haven't seen it already. So really the placement exams and all this information that we've been sharing with regards to, first semester worksheets, and I'm going to talk about course registration next, or pre-registration next. It's all kind of coming to them, right? You had the ROAR booklet, which kind of gave you the general summer overview, but then this online orientation is kind of meant to keep them on track and to keep them organized and to not be super overwhelming all summer. And it's a really helpful tool. And so hopefully you got out a lot out of that a lot. I think the other thing I'll do in a couple weeks when I share my schedule for who's coming on in July is that I could share with you a class, right? So again, I'm a student here. I have 2 classes left this summer. And you might have seen that already when I was sharing my screen, but I have other classes. And I think it's kind of helpful to see how different faculty members can kind of use it. So just have to make sure that there's no personal information, but we'll share that a little bit later so that you can have an idea of that as well. Okay, moving on. Oh gosh, so many questions about pre-registration. I can't see you, but normally this is the part where everybody's like, oh yeah, now I want to listen. Okay, so I want to start really quickly with a big picture thing. We are faculty-based advising model. What that means is that your student will have a faculty advisor who's in their department. Okay, all of our faculty are 10-month employees. Guess which months they don't work? July and August. Well, technically end of June to end of August. So that makes it really hard, right, to get through answering questions about your first semester sequence and all sorts of stuff when they're not here. So we pre-register every single incoming new student for their fall schedule, right? So whether you're a first year, a provisional, or a transfer student, we will pre-register you. And by we, it's not me. It is the amazing individuals who work in our academic departments and then our Office of Records and Registration. But we take care of that in part because you will not be assigned, your student will not be assigned an advisor until the first week of class. All right. And that's also why that contact information page in online orientation is really important, because we tell you who to go to over the summer, understanding that once you get your faculty advisor, that person is going to be much more appropriate to talk to in the fall about your spring semester and all of the planning that you have to do over the course of the 2, 3, or 4 years that you're here at TCNJ. But no advisors until the first week of class. And I know for my transfer students, that's like the first question I get. Who's my advisor so I can ask questions? Not yet. So the departments are doing this over the summer. So how do we get them the information that they need in order to do this, right? So for our first year and our provisional students, we created this super complex but awesome little form called the First Semester Worksheet, or FSW for short. You're going to learn very quickly if you're a new family to TCNJ that we love acronyms. So the First Semester Worksheet, what you want to do is think about, that's kind of like a one-on-one conversation. So we're pre-registering 1,850 students right now simultaneously throughout the month of June, okay? It gets crazy. So the First Semester Worksheet, first of all, it is specific to major. So if you are your student's an incoming nursing major, your student is only going to get the First Semester Worksheet for nursing majors. And there's questions that they walk him or her through will be very specific to what the information they need for the nursing program for their first semester sequence, right? So their kind of core requirements for what all of their new students are going to take in the fall semester. So it's specific to major, and you have your student logged in with their TCNJ username, ID, and password, and logged in and filled out all of the, hopefully, because it was due on Friday, filled out all of the information that we needed. It asked questions about, did you sit for any AP exams and what subjects did you sit for? Are you, questions about language, if the major required a second language. Potentially, it might have asked for SAT or ACT scores for things like calculus placement. I don't know if that changed because that placement is new this year or not, but academic questions, right? The other thing it asked for was their preferences when it came to, they were selecting their kind of top 6 seminar choices and their top 6 writing course topics, right? Because both their first year writing class and the seminar, the first year seminar, are topics based. So we said, hey, what kind of, what are some of the topics that interest you in this list of 80 or 90 or whatnot? So they kind of gave us everything, like they would be sitting down talking one-on-one to somebody in our Office of Records and Registration. And then that went, right? If they did it by Friday, hopefully they did. The filling out percentage on that number was not very good at the end of last week. So let's do this as a very quick reminder that if you are a first year or a provisional student and your family and your student did not fill out that worksheet yet, they need to do that like tonight. All right. So then we give that information to the departments and the departments do their magic, right? They have internal documents that kind of go through and say, okay, I'll give you a perfect example. I know that all the history majors coming in are taking some type of intro to history course, right? I'm sure all of the nursing majors, I think like most of them take anatomy and physiology 1 or something like that. So they go through and they build the schedule, and all of this is happening right now, right? And the first semester worksheet's a really big piece to that. Now, I already saw a question or two in the chat. No, tonight's chat is absolutely not just for incoming first year and provisional students. The transfer students are welcome and their families were invited as well. So the transfer student process is a little bit different. They don't have a worksheet, right? Because every incoming transfer student is totally unique. They went to separate institutions, they have separate majors, they did separate, they have completely separate or unique, I guess should say, individual transcripts with the types of credits that they chose. Each individual transcript that came in from our transfer students was evaluated personally by one of our academic evaluators in the Office of Records and Registration. So what happens for the transfer students is their page in online orientation walks them through the steps. The most important thing they should have done already is to read the transfer ebook. All right, that's a flip book that the Office of Records and Registration put together that walks them through all of these things, right? There are different criteria and restrictions or exemptions if you graduated from a New Jersey community college, for example, right? So part of the Lampett bill, certain liberal learning classes are waived, et cetera, et cetera. If you're transferring in as only doing 1 year at a 4-year college, that's going to look a little bit different, right? So the transfer ebook is such a wealth of knowledge, and I think a lot of people kind of gloss that over. I would absolutely check that first. And then also in there is instructions on how to put classes in your shopping cart. Again, this is only for transfer students, big sign, transfer students only. You have the option to kind of browse and pause. We gave you a tutorial on how to do that. You can go in, you can take a look and say, hey, you know what? These types of courses interest me. I'll put them into my shopping cart. All right. Think about the shopping cart in the same way that you would Amazon, right? Oh, that looks fun. Click there. It's not going to be a one button purchase and buy and ship for you because we have somebody on the other end who's taking a look at all that. But you essentially, our transfer students have the option of putting classes they're interested in into this shopping cart. And then your department chairs, right, are looking at that information, your preferences in pause in the shopping cart, in addition to your transcript, okay? And starting to put together what your schedule is going to look like. It is usually, I would guess if I were guessing, I think that there's probably more transfer students who work on the schedules at their transfer orientation session versus most of our first year students and our provisional students are buttoned up and their courses are in class schedules pretty much done the week before orientation. So again, the transfer students are a little bit different because they have such a unique profile, each one of them, versus we know that all incoming first year, biology majors are going to need to take kind of these same 2 or 3 classes, right? And then tweaking depending on AP scores and some of the other things of that nature. So I think that was a little bit, oh shoot, hold on one second. Let me just put my thing perfect. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Huge thing to tell everybody. Oh gosh, I'm going to be putting this in very large letters in the transition times next week because I've gotten so many emails about it already. Your schedule is not finalized right now. Not at all. You will get an email from us when it is. All right. And again, for my first years in my transfer or first years in provisional students, that's going to be the week before orientation in July. There is another 4 weeks that we're going to be working on schedules. And what happens right now is that they log into pause and they're like, oh, I got a class here on Monday and Thursday, right at 2 o'clock. And then you could log into pause 5 days later. And all of a sudden that class is gone. And now it's on Tuesdays and Fridays, or it was at 2 p.m. and now it's at 8 a.m. Right. And now all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Just remember, we're pre-registering 1,850 of y'all at the same time. It's a whole chess puzzle, right, that goes back and forth throughout the month of June. So they are not done. Take a deep breath. There will be changes. And I just really wanted to keep that in mind. Transfer students, your orientation takes place earlier. So you're coming up, on June 22nd, your orientation is coming up. I think I have a bullet point about that a little bit later. So yours will change a bit too. But again, it will not be finalized until orientation, and same for our first year students. So please keep that in mind as you're talking to your student, because I think that that's really important. Okay. Quick note about AP scores. 2 more things about this and then we'll move on. Man, we had such a great schedule for AP adjustments. Typically we get them on July 4th, like right around the holiday, usually a day after. And then we make all the adjustments the 2 weeks before orientation so that if there's any issues, we can hash them out at orientation. Well, College Board emailed us a couple weeks ago, or everybody, the world, a couple weeks ago, and said, hey, if you sat for a May exam, we're not going to get the scores until like July 23rd or something like that, which is the week right after, like the day after orientation's over. And then if your student sat for June AP exams, we're not getting those till August. So different this year. We are going to make adjustments as soon as they come in. It is an all hands on deck situation. Everybody knows I meet monthly with records and registration and the assistant deans in the schools, and everybody just kind of knows that we're going to get them when we get them. And as soon as we get them, we are going to be making adjustments to schedules if the AP exam subject and score makes a difference to the first semester sequence, right? So some people may get credit for exams, but it doesn't impact their first semester, so nothing changes. Other majors, if let's say that, they have to take a chemistry class their first semester and they sat for the AP Chem and they got a 5, well, then that might make a difference. And then they might be, having to have a conversation with their department about that. Another important reason why they should keep checking their TCNJ email. So that was a quick note about AP adjustments, and then major changes, which I'm pretty sure we just had a question come in on. Let me just go back and check. Orientation, Regina, I'm going to talk about in a minute. It's in July. I'll give you the dates. The shopping cart does not apply to first-year students. First-year students and provisional students just have to fill out the first semester worksheet, the FSW, and they are done. Transfer students need to do the shopping cart. FSW asked about AP courses taken but not dual credit. How does the student get credit for dual credit classes? So that information comes with the official transcripts, and the official transcripts for the first year and provisional students, I believe, are due July 1st. And then those will be taken into consideration. Again, similar to the AP, if they took dual credit or they have an AP score that impacts the classes they are taking for the first semester, we're going to flush that out. Normally it's at orientation. It's probably going to be via email and phone and whatnot afterwards because of the fact that we're not getting the AP scores in. If they do have dual enrollment, as soon as they can get it to us, that's great. They will go through the same process that our transfer students do, where we evaluate the dual enrollment credits and then we post them to the students' online portal. But the sooner the better for that. And they have to come directly from the institution. So just keep that in mind as well. We can't take anything unofficial for the dual enrollment classes. Okay. On to major changes, and I think we'll wrap up here before moving on to orientation. So no major changes anymore. Right? There was a very brief window back in May, beginning of May, where we were able, the Office of Admissions was able to reevaluate students based on their request. But we cannot just with, again, if you can imagine how I kind of simplified it for you, this pre-registration process, there's a million other things I didn't talk about. And it's not going to be really possible for us to be making major changes at this point. So a couple things about that. One, there is a beautiful document on the Academic Affairs website. I will try to find it by the time I take a break here, that lists, every year it gets updated, and it lists the department, and it lists what you need to do to be considered for or to apply for what's called an internal transfer, which is what your student would be if they were here in their first semester and they were interested in changing their major for the spring semester. It's a beautiful document, right? Because for some majors, it might just be, hey, fill out this form and you're good to go, right? Other majors, it may be, hey, you need to take these 3 classes, get this certain GPA, and fill out this application, and then we'll review you, right? So it really depends on where you're coming from and where you want to go. But this document is amazing because every department has to fill out the process. So it's really transparent and it gives you a really good clue. I will go and try to find it and link it to you at some point here while I'm chatting. So that's that. The second part of this though, and this is where the heartstrings are, right? Working in admissions, I know this. It is so difficult that, and I get it. I know why we have to do it, but I also understand your side where it's like, okay, but what if my student changes their mind? Then what's the deal, right? Part of college should be exploring, should be figuring out, maybe, a lot of students come in and they're like, I know I want to do this. I think I want to do this. And then they take another class in another subject and they're like, oh my gosh, wow, like that opened my eyes. And maybe that's what I want to do. I mean, part of inherently the great part about college is kind of finding yourself. And that's a lot of times people kind of default to that being outside the classroom, but a lot of times that's inside. Case in point for yours truly, I earned my bachelor's of, fun fact for the night, I earned my bachelor's of science degree in meteorology. So actually, it's on the wall right there. Wait, I can never figure that out. So I'm a weather girl who's now working in student affairs and in higher education. So that's a whole nother story for another chat. But all that to say, there are going to be some majors where it's very, very difficult to transfer in, right? It's just very competitive. But most, by and large, if you work hard, if you put in the work, make connections, get to know faculty members, right? You're going to be able to make a jump there, or at least add on a major, or, a minor, potentially a second major, all those types of things. So I say no change of major now. You can explore it. Your student can explore it in the fall semester. There's documents and information to kind of help your student guide them, to support them in that process. But just know that a lot of the times we're really, we can really try to make exploration work. And especially, obviously in some schools it's a little bit easier than others because of course sequencing is a little bit not as stringent. But that's an important thing, right? That's what college is all about. All right, let me go back and see here. We can talk about welcome week towards the end. How many credits and classes will be taken each semester? We're going to talk a lot more about academics in a couple weeks with one of our caffeine chats right before orientation. So I'm going to save that for now. Just got a letter that our dual credit transcript won't be available until July 15th. Yeah, Macy, totally out of your control, right? Whenever they have it, just get it in. We're very understanding of the fact that, you're beholden to kind of the institution that you earned the dual credit at. And it is what it is. So just as long as your student's on top of that and just making sure the second it's available, it gets sent to us, that will be good. But honestly, with the way that the AP scores are going this year and the fact that they're so much later, July 15th is not a big deal. We'll get it, and we'll get that done too. All right, so that, again, so fast, but there's so much more to come on that. Just really wanted to highlight some of the bigger picture for the process for how we do pre-registration here. Hopefully that helped answer a bit, but just know that there's a lot more information, again, coming. We don't want to overload you with information either. So there's a really helpful session in a couple weeks, and I'll chat more about that at the end. That's going to be really applicable to this conversation. Okay, some things about orientation. Yay! I'm really jazzed about this. So it's going to be a hybrid model this year. So all of your academic sessions are going to be virtual, all of them. All of our transfer students, regardless of major, have their academic sessions on Tuesday, June 22nd, coming up, like a week and a half away. You will get your Zoom links and your final details and your times end of this week coming up, likely. I'm still waiting on a few more departments to let me know, but you should have blocked off 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., that 3-hour window in the morning. Any sessions that you need to go to are going to fall in that 3-hour window. All right. It's the same 3-hour window for my first years and my provisional students. So your 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. window, that 3 hours, all of your virtual sessions that are academic focused will take place then as well. Your dates, so your orientation week is the week of July 19. So July 19, 20, 21, 22, Monday to Thursday. And we split up the first year and the provisional students based on their, the first year students based on their incoming major, and all the provisional students come together into one session. So all of that information was sent to your student 2 weeks ago. The last transition times had a breakdown of the schools that are coming on what days, as well as the link to RSVP for the in-person optional component, which I'll talk about in a minute. And that session in the morning is going to be really, really helpful for your student, because again, they're going to get much more detail about what I just talked about. The faculty member who's leading that session is going to explain, hey, here's why you were enrolled into X, Y, and Z, and welcome to the department. Here's all the great things that we're going to be talking to you about and doing in your first semester at the college, and we're so happy to have you. So super helpful sessions. All of our School of Education students, because you are dual majors, okay, you will have 2 sessions. So our School of Education students will definitely have a 9 a.m. session, because you're going to meet with your education department chair first, and then you will meet with your content area later in the morning, depending on the time that they're hosting it. So the example that I like to give for my education students, and again, this information is on the website. If you are a secondary education math major, right? So secondary education mathematics is your major. You're going to come on the day of the School of Science, because the mathematics content area, your content area being math, is a part of the School of Science, and you're coming on that day. And actually, oh gosh, this is the worst. I'll look that up too, because I can't remember which days I moved them around from last year. So if you're an elementary education psychology major, you're going to come on the day that Humanities and Social Sciences is coming, because that is their day, right? The psychology department falls under the School of Humanities and Social Sciences. If you have any questions about that, you can email Student Transitions, and we're more than happy to confirm which day that your sessions will be on. And then similar to my transfer students, about a week before, you'll get an email with your Zoom links and all that kind of good stuff. So that is what we consider kind of the mandatory part, right? If you are going to miss it, if you are somewhere on vacation that you don't have internet access, or for whatever the reason, maybe you may not have that, or you have some type of family obligation, we're just asking students, and I put this in the email and I will remind them to reach out to their department directly, right? Just to give them a heads up, because the expectation is that the students are going to be logging on to get this information. It's really helpful information for them over the summer. Okay. Oh, look, I already went through all my bullet points. All right. Second part of orientation. So we are hosting an optional in-person on campus, too many hyphens there, program. Very exciting. It is I think it's the only event on campus all summer long, which is super, super fun. So the students, couple things about this. One, and again, all this information was in the transition times. Your students should have gotten it. If you're on our listserv, you would have gotten it as well. This program is going to run 1 to 4:30. So it's in the afternoon, all 4 days, the same week in July, July 19, 20, 21, 22, Monday to Thursday, 1 to 4:30. One, only sign up for 1 day. Got to make sure we have a seat for everybody. 2, you can pick any day you want. Super flexible for your family's schedule if you're able to attend. Caveat there is just to be mindful of what day your morning session is on. So I have a family who's listening from, if anybody's from Bergen County, say, for example, today, you can say hello in the chat. You know, that's like a 2-hour ride here. So if you have a session virtually that goes until 12 and you're doing it at home in Bergen County, you're not going to make it down here in time, you know, you'll make it down here in time for some stuff, but we really want you to make the most of the day. So I would probably say to you, maybe think about coming another day that week. If you're local, if you're one of my Mercer County, Trenton, Ewing, Hamilton, Lawrenceville folks, you can say hello too. You might be able to do it all in 1 day, right? Because 12 o'clock, if it takes you less than an hour to get to campus, you could kind of jam pack that. So it hopefully provides you with some flexibility to make that choice. But just keep in mind where you're going to be doing your virtual sessions in order to do that. Oh, hi, hello to everybody. Okay. Transfer students. This is very, very important. Please come. Okay. So transfer orientation on June 22 is not going to have an in-person component that day, but we have Griffins and all sorts of resources and all the things happening the week in July, and we really want you to come. So even though your virtual sessions are going to take place a few weeks before, you are still highly encouraged. Hi, Colleen from Bergen County. Our transfer students are highly encouraged to come for this 1 to 4:30 for one of the days that week, just because you're going to have a lot of information that will be helpful for you as well to attend. Our priority for that day. Ooh, what are we doing? Yeah, well, I mean, the schedule is on the website, at least loosely, but just so you know where my brain was at when I put together the day. The priority is tours, right? Wow. I mean, some of you might have been to visit campus, but like not as many of you as we normally have. So we're going to prioritize campus tours, and we are going to prioritize residence hall tours. So I know that was a question that had a whole bunch of questions to it that were submitted ahead of time, but we are going to be offering tours of the residence halls. I'm just trying to narrow down. We do a lot of work over the summer in terms of cleaning and maintenance and stuff. So I just have to narrow down which ones we're going to be able to get into. But residence hall tours and campus tours are really extra big. We always do them, but extra big this year because we know that many of you have not had the opportunity to come to campus at all or in quite some time. So that was one thing that we're prioritizing. We will also have a huge resource fair. So it's going to give you the opportunity to connect with, like, normally I have somewhere between 20 and 25 offices that have somebody there to answer questions. Super helpful for that piece. We're going to make your students do some icebreakers. Do a little Q&A with my transition leaders, talk a little about student life and things that they can expect. We're already doing that already with the orientation groups, but there's that. And then parents. So I was really at a loss, right? So I do these chats. We have lots of guest speakers coming on over the summer. A lot of this was stuff that we normally did at in-person orientation back in its normal version from a few years ago. And I was like really struggling with how to make that pretty robust for you all. So I am going to do a parent Q&A. While I'm there, it'll be me, so you'll get to meet me in person, which is super exciting. And TBD on guest speakers or the topics that we're going to cover. I might just do very similar to this, like a general, hey, fill out this form and let me know what questions you have to make the most of the time. But we will be doing a parent session. Right now, it is limited to 1 guest per student. All right. And we did that because when the form launched a couple of weeks ago, you know, obviously, even though we have come so far, there's still a bit of a ways to go with this pandemic, and things are still changing on a regular basis with state restrictions, indoor and outdoor capacities, all that kind of stuff. So I continue to monitor that. We limited it to 1. So 1 parent. For the record, we usually only let people bring 2 people. So it wasn't a huge, it's not usually a free-for-all. But we're going to reevaluate that in the beginning of July, and I will let you know if there is an opportunity to increase that to 2. But right now we're capping it at 1. And I believe we're also, we split up the entire incoming class, so first-year transfer provisional students, into 4, and I think it's like 450 students a day. So the link that they were sent to RSVP was in the Transition Times newsletter, which if you didn't get it, can also be found on my website. I always post it immediately after I send it. Your student has to RSVP. They have to log in with their username and password into the portal that they used for their admission cycle process when they logged in to check the status of their application, submit the deposit. Same portal, and they can sign up for 1 day. There you go. Got to do it by June 25, right? You can change your date after June 25 if there's space and something happens and you want to come on another day, but I cannot take any late RSVPs or registrations after June 25 just for purposes of, again, capacities, catering numbers, all that kind of stuff. So, oh, that's a good... Hi, Ree. Here we go. So studenttransitions.tcnj.edu is the website. You can click on the first year tab for first year and provisional students, the transfer tab for transfers, and the information about orientation is there. You will not find a link because, again, that went to your student in the Transition Times, and it's keyed up to where their information, when they click on it, will link directly to them so that they can fill out the form. Okay, let me go back and see if there were any other questions that I missed. My daughter graduates on June 22. What should we do regarding orientation? Betsy, so your daughter's an incoming transfer student and she graduates? Again, she should go to graduation is what she should do. She should smile and get her awesome photo in her cap and gown, and then just have her email log into online orientation, find her department contact, and just shoot them an email, let them know that you're graduating that day, and they'll be able to set up a separate meeting with her to talk about her schedule for the fall semester. Nikki, are parents supposed to go to in-person? Yeah, so you can. So again, 1 guest, so you can if you'd like to. Can we coordinate our virtual sessions as we are 4 hours away, or do we just have to plan around the virtual session? I don't know necessarily about coordinate. I mean, in theory, if you wanted to drive down somewhere nearby and do your virtual sessions in a public space, I guess that would be an option if you wanted to do both in 1 day. But really, the students are going to have at least 1 session with their department, possibly 2 if they're an education major. And then there will be kind of an optional time or a session that is optional for the students who have questions, who need to fix schedules or things of that nature. The sessions themselves, the department sessions, I'll stress that, are typically anywhere between 30 to 60 minutes, depending on the department, right? And then your education folks are definitely at 9. So if your student is a non-education major, they're going to be really between 10 and 12, right? Somewhere in that ballpark. Education, you're going to be up a little bit early, which I guess is kind of ironic because your professional have you be up early at school, I guess, too. So hopefully that answered that question about that. And again, coordination for my out-of-state families, feel free to email me at thatstudenttransitions@tcnj.edu, and we can get you some more info there. Okay, deadline to submit. I talked about that website there. Just want to make sure I understand virtual orientation. Yep. Yes, Bradley. Yes to all those things. So virtual. So the week of July 19th to the 22nd. Virtual sessions in the morning between 9 and 12, and the optional 1 to 4:30 in the afternoon every day. And it's optional because we understand that some students and families just may not feel comfortable traveling or being in that capacity. Also, I'm finalizing what health and safety restrictions and guidelines are going to look like for orientation, and we need to get that information out as well. So we're going to do that with the confirmation emails, likely the week right after 4th of July. So that week of July 5. Okay. Oh, also great question about EOF. Yeah, they can't miss class, right? So our EOF students take like a very condensed 5-week summer program that has 1 or 2 classes associated with that. And because of that, missing even just like 1 day is a huge deal. So I actually have on my list to chat with the EOF director, Dr. Harris, in the next week or 2 here to figure out how we can accommodate students that are in EOF so they can participate in both. So they should look for that information within the next couple of weeks. We'll figure that out and flesh out those details. Bradley, you're welcome. All right, I think those were all my bullet points for orientation. So much. Okay. Yep. Okay. Very quickly. Now we're going to go through the stuff that's pretty fast, or I'll tell you where stuff is coming. All right. Vaccination 101. Oh gosh. Okay. Let me grab the link. I saved it in here just to throw that in there. So obviously, as everybody is aware, the college made the decision that they were going to require the vaccination for all students that are coming in, well, all students period, whether they're new students or not. I got a handful of questions that were specific, a couple questions about exemptions, a couple questions about X, Y, and Z. That link that I just gave you is the most up-to-date information. This is not my area of expertise. I obviously receive all of the campus-wide emails just like all of you do. But if you have specific questions about exemptions, obviously your student is uploading the vaccination proof on OWL, which is the same platform that they upload the rest of their pre-entrance health requirement forms on. It's done through OWL, which stands for Online Wellness Link. Where do they find that? Oh gosh, this is where I wish it could be more interactive. Online orientation, they can go there, all the links are there. But that link will be hopefully very helpful for you in terms of answering any questions about that. And I really would defer to emailing the health department, our student health services, if you have questions. Their email is very generically just help@tcnj.edu, okay? Proof of the vaccine is due by July 23rd. This is 1 week exactly after our pre-entrance regular, normal pre-entrance health requirements are due, right? So pre-entrance health requirement forms, again, online orientation, there's a packet that they can download. I have been telling your student this at every turn I can for weeks because of the fact that you can't get certain vaccines overlapping at the same time, right? So hopefully if they haven't already and they still haven't gotten on getting the COVID vaccine, making sure that they really time that up and taking a look at what other requirements we have, because if they need a meningitis C shot or B shot or whatever the case may be, they really need to kind of get that on a schedule so that they've gotten all their requirements in by the deadlines. And again, they upload it through OWL and all of that information is in their online orientation. Okay, now I've gotten to the miscellaneous part. We're almost there. Ooh, 10 minutes, good. Okay, so last week we held our first orientation group meetups. So your student was placed into a orientation group for the summer. This was also something that we did out of necessity last year that we thought, oh, that was a really good idea. I don't know why we weren't doing that before. Although we're not meeting with them as often as we did last summer. So they were broken up for my first year's, everybody, first year's provisionals together, so first years and transfers by major this year. So last year it was random, but this year we wanted to try to start to build community within their academic home at TCNJ. So your student was sent an email from somebody on my staff who was like, hi. There were probably a bunch of GIFs and memes in there too, but they hosted the first of 3 orientation group meetups this summer. Most of the feedback I got from my staff last week was super positive. They had a really good turnout. Obviously we're not going to ever be able to get 100% because everybody's schedules, work schedules, vacation schedules are different. But if your student didn't go or they haven't, just kind of chat about it. Say, hey, did you get that email from somebody about your orientation group? And, were you able to go? Are you able to go to the others? Because these are entirely student-led and they each have a very distinct purpose, right? So this last one last week was talking all about what I'm sharing with you. They were shared this information as well. Hey, did you do your worksheet? Hey, did you fill out, put classes in your shopping cart for pre-registration? How are the health forms? Make sure that you're doing X, Y, and Z, right? So it's just a really nice touch base, but, it allows them to connect with an upper class student on my staff and I get to connect with you. So there's 2 more, one in the beginning of July after the 4th of July holiday. I think it might be the week of the 12th before orientation, and then 1 a week or 2 before welcome week. So make sure that your student's doing that. If your student says, Mom, Dad, I have no idea what Lindsay's talking about, I never got an email, student transitions at tcnj.edu. We will look you up. We'll connect you with that staff person because sometimes things happen. Okay, the summer reading assignment, I did get a question about that. The questions will be loaded at the end of June. So they are going to have a new course in Canvas open up specifically for this assignment. It will say SRP 099, Summer Reading Program 099. The questions, the prompts for the assignment will be there. That's where they submit it, end of June. So they're a little early, but if they haven't started yet, reading or listening on audio to the book, good idea. Where's the book? Online orientation. Alrighty, financial aid questions. I got a handful of financial aid questions. I think it's very important I tell this to my students all the time, to recognize your limitations in your areas of knowledge and to improve on those. I don't have that's not 100% true. I don't have a lick of what's going on in student financial assistance, but woof, I am not an expert in financial aid at all. And thank goodness, right? Because we have some of the most amazing individuals on this campus work in that office, and they are going to be answering any questions you have all summer long about types of loans to fill out. Somebody had a question about parent loans. I know this is something I'm going to have, hopefully be very well versed in not too long, 10 years. But please send your financial aid questions there. I can connect you with the right people. Obviously, let me know if you're having a hard time hearing back. Here's their email. Office of Student Financial Assistance, OSFA, at tcnj.edu, and then usually give them like 2 days. They have been really on it, but obviously, as you can imagine, this time of year, they're getting a lot of questions. And again, very, obviously, because each questions are very specific to your family situation, your financial situation, it's easier to go that way. So financial aid questions go there. On FAFSA too, we had a question or two about FAFSA. I'll go to that. Okay, housing. Yay! So this is the next deadline that's up. Deadline is Tuesday, June 15th. I'm actually wearing to promote my housing shirt tonight. Stay home with us, TCNJ Housing. So deadline, if you would like to live on campus, is Tuesday. Where do they find that? Online orientation for the link there. I did have some questions about roommates, and I wrote down roommates, and I don't remember what the question was. If you had a roommate question, let me know. I think it was about oh gosh, I don't know. I'll blank. I'll go back and I'll find you whoever that question was about roommates. But you do have the option if you haven't filled out the housing application yet. Again, this is from, I'm sorry, I should start that. This is for my first years and my provisional students. If you haven't done that yet and walk through, right, there is an option for you to select, to start a roommate group and specifically select someone for a roommate, or you have the chance to go completely random, right? My transfer students, your housing application has been open since day one, completely different process. So if you have not applied for housing, you absolutely can still do so. Earlier, sooner the better, obviously, in terms of getting you placed into upper class housing. And again, your online orientation has a slightly different link that takes you to the transfer housing page to walk you through those details. But not too late for you as well, and you can get that in anytime, but the sooner the better. All right, will I be able to see a room? Yes, answer that at orientation, yay. And a few of you asked about mattress size, so twin, extra long. There you go, standard college size, which my 6'7" partner had a really rough time at when he was a first-year student at Penn State. Yep. All right. So much more to come on housing. Yes, you're going to get to see rooms. Somebody mentioned, there are virtual tours on the website. They're a little, obviously potentially tough and limiting because you're not there in person. Obviously, we can only do so much with the virtual space, but you will get a chance to do that. And more to come on housing. We'll see them a little bit later in the summer to start talking about more specific questions. Move-in. There were also several questions about move-in. So I have more info coming on this. Not 100% fleshed out yet. Well, actually, we're mostly fleshed out. We just have a few more details that we're putting together before we share it to the public. But it's going to be staggered and similar to what we did in the spring semester. For those of you not familiar, what we did in the spring semester and what we will be doing in August is a drop and go style. So that for several days, I don't remember exactly how many, we're going to get this to you. So a couple of days prior to the traditional big move-in day, we will have the option for you to sign up for a time slot to come to move all your stuff in, set up your room, and then leave and then come back to campus on Thursday for the start of Welcome Week. So much more details to come for the move-in schedule, all that kind of good stuff later. But again, it's just another measure that we're taking to reduce having, again, 1,500, however many are living on campus, moving in on the same day. Okay, some questions about campus shuttles and transportation. Yes, we have a loop bus, and there is a stop on campus for the New Jersey Transit bus. So there are several options in terms of getting around locally in Mercer County. If you don't have a car on campus, our first-year students are not allowed to have a car. Our commuter students and our transfer students, if they're living in upper-class housing, can. And then we're about 10 minutes from the Hamilton train, 10 to 15 minutes from the Hamilton train station and the Trenton train station for New Jersey Transit. So the trains and the buses are great. The other nice thing about TCNJ, and I tell people this all the time, because of our size, your student, if they don't have a car, is very quickly going to have friends who have cars. So, friends and friends, they'll go out on trips, they'll run to Princeton, they'll take, go out to lunch or run to the closest Target, and we'll have some more information about all the local places to purchase things and all sorts of stuff like that. But that question came up, I wanted to address. Another question also about ATMs and banks. So the ATM on campus in the Student Center is a Wells Fargo. But there are several other types of banks in the nearby area. I used to live in Pennington, the next town over. There was a TD Bank, although actually I don't know if that just closed or not. There's one in Ewing too. Couple different types. So whether it's on campus, and Spencer Savings is in Campus Town. So you have options in the local area surrounding, or you can do Wells Fargo. It just kind of depends on your personal preference for that. Housing or academic accommodations, right? So if your student needs academic accommodations, whether it be extra time, they had an IEP on file that they want to transfer over, whatever the case may be in terms of academic accommodations, or if they have housing specific accommodations that they need, the very first step is to contact our Accessibility Resource Center. So it's ARC for short. Their email is arc@tcnj.edu. Megan and Kai and Dixita over there are just tremendous. Send them an email. They will start that process with you and take things from there. But we had a question about that. Laptops, so funny. Several laptop questions, not only submitted ahead of time, but I'm just like very quickly scrolling through here and seeing that as well. So usually I would say it's student's choice, right? Based on their comfort, whether they want a Mac or a PC. I will say that some majors may have a preference, right? So off the top of my head, like I don't know if the computer science folks have a preference, the department chair does, or our interactive multimedia folks, maybe they would prefer a Mac over a PC. Again, I can't keep all of it straight with all the majors, but that's a really great question for your student to email the department and ask, or to bring up an online orientation, their virtual sessions, if they don't get a chance to do so anyway. So typically it is the student's choice, but I would just double check with the department if you're in kind of some of those majors that have maybe software systems or different types of applications to kind of your classwork and your coursework that might say otherwise, and they may say, hey, we have a recommendation for X, Y, and Z. And then somebody asked about printers as well. They submitted that question ahead of time. I would say most students don't have a printer. No, if they need to print, they go to the library and they have like money on their TCNJ ID card where they can swipe it, or they have like any one of the local places off campus to print. My recommendation would be not to bring one to start and then just wait and see. This is a very good idea just in general for everything. My favorite part of move-in is when you see like the entire life coming in and it's like, okay, you can bring some stuff to get started and then you got to live in the space a little bit, right? You got to give it a couple weeks. You got to live in the space and physically see what fits and what doesn't. You need time, and that's same for the classroom as well, right? So, do you need a printer? Do you not? I would give that a couple weeks and get here and get started and then kind of feel it out and see how your student feels about that. All sorts of other questions about micro fridges and stuff, and we're going to get there. We're going to get to the housing stuff there. Just only had an hour. Oh my gosh, 9:01. Okay, so I will end. I'm going to take a quick look through the comments just to see here, but let me end with the schedule coming up because, again, lots of people across campus who are experts in their area that I'm bringing on to share information with you. So next one is next week. I know we're normally every other week, but we move some things around. So next Sunday, same time, same place, 8 o'clock here. My special guest is going to be Yvonne Cruz, who is our Executive Director for Student Success and Retention at TCNJ. She oversees hugely important offices on campus: EOF, the Center for Student Success, and tutoring. So any questions about academic support for your student, we're going to have a whole big conversation about that next week. So highly encourage you to come there. Then we're going to take a little bit of a hiatus between the holidays and things like that, 4th of July holiday and stuff. But July 11th, we have Frank Cooper. Frank is our Executive Director in the Office of Records and Registration. That session, we're going to be talking way more depth about pre-registration. We're going to talk about your students' first semester at the college from like a nuts and bolts perspective, mid-year progress reports, FERPA, all sorts of really, really good information from Frank. So that's a super fun one. And then 2 weeks after that, July 25th, we're going to have Scott Safara, who's the Executive Director for the Office of Student Accounts. So your billing questions, plenty of billing questions were submitted ahead of time. The bills will go out that week. Scott's going to come on Sunday, July 25, and the bills, I believe, go out like Tuesday or Wednesday of that week, last week in July. But we'll be able to answer all sorts of questions for you about the payment options, the billing calendar and cycle. The bills go out the end of July. They're due the end of August. Lots of information coming to you from Scott there. And then we're going to host 2 in August. So Sunday, August 8th, we have Shannon Conklin and Dr. Ivani Rana, who are directors with our Office of Career and Leadership Development. Super knowledgeable, helpful session, because we know that a lot of the reasons students pick TCNJ, and a lot of the reasons that hopefully you all, supported that and also choose us, is because of our outcomes, right? And our opportunities to gain leadership experience both inside and the outside of the classroom, but really that placement, whether it's graduate school, medical school, or immediately into working profession, and in careers, there's a lot of information, and we are not the school where student kind of shows up to the career center at the start of senior year and goes, oh, hey, let's chat. You start first year here. Transfer students, you start day one here too, right? Because you got a little bit less time than everybody else. So they have amazing information and resources to share about that. And then lastly, Sunday, August 22. And yes, to answer your question, all of these dates are coming to you. I just wanted to give bigger picture. The last one, which is the Sunday before move-in and welcome week. Actually, move-in will probably be underway at that point, but before welcome week kicks off. Hopefully, it's TBD right now. And hopefully we'll have a special guest to kind of wrap up our sessions here. So I will share that schedule with all of you. Let me go back and see if there's, and again, if you have to drop off, I'm sorry, you can come back later, but let me just go back and see if there were any other specific questions to share. Again, financial aid, I think I handled, so laptop requirements are done. Again, financial aid questions have to go financial aid. I don't get involved in that. ID cards are giving out at on-campus orientation if they cannot make it. Yeah, great question. So if they cannot make the in-person optional component, they will have an opportunity to pick them up at the start of the semester. TBD on all that, but we usually do that within the first, either at move-in or, within the first kind of couple days of the semester there. Oh, let's see. Carol, I believe you had a question about kind of timing with the meningitis and the COVID. Again, that health link that I sent you is going to have the breakdown for when to kind of stagger that, and you can reach out to them with specific questions. More laptop questions. Linda, the financial aid department, I don't know that extension off the top of my head, but I'm sure it's on the website somewhere to look that up. Most of the offices on campus now have at least one person in office every day, and then their email. So, and they've been, obviously we've all had to be really on top of our emails this year more than ever before, but normally they're really good at it. Welcome week activities for sophomores. Did I have any of my sophomore parents sneak in on this tonight? I wonder, I should have asked that and said hello. Okay, so yes, the sophomores, so class of 2024, they received a interest survey that's also due next week. So they should fill that out. That basically, I need to gauge interest, right? So I told the class of 2024, you will not be forgotten. I am not forgetting about you. I stuck with you all last year, helping you navigate all the wildness of year one at TCNJ. And the plan was to try to provide some activities and some opportunities for the sophomores to participate in Welcome Week. So I am working behind the scenes, but the more people who fill out that interest form, the better. Because it's really, there was how many of them last year? 1,500, 1,700 new students altogether with my transfers. If I don't get enough people filling out that form to let me know if they're interested in one way or another, it's really going to hurt my ability to plan an event that could be really successful and really worthwhile. The goal being that they wouldn't be doing any of the mandatory sessions our first year students and our new transfer students would have to do, but really just creating some opportunities for connection, because we had so many students who didn't live on campus last year, who stayed remote, who may be living on campus now, or just students who want to connect and kind of have that kind of reset button for year two. So your student got that email. They have to get them to fill it out. It's due next week. And then I will have more information about that in the beginning of July. I'm sorry about that. Okay, problem submitting the photo. Yeah, have her contact tech support. Actually, I would have her email student accounts, not tech, because that's a third-party vendor that we use for the ID photo. And it might just be as simple as making sure that her TCNJ email address or ID was uploaded into the system so that she's in there. Okay, more laptop questions. Upcoming schedule, something. Let's see. Roommate request was made, and then my student's friend decided to commute. Nikki, yes, thank you. You were the one. Okay. Can my student change her housing app before Tuesday to go random? Have your student email housing@tcnj.edu. Just let them know that the student withdrew from housing. She's going to be commuting, and they should be able to change the application on the back end to where she's going random. He or she is going random. So just have them email. It's just I'll throw it in there for you. Housing@tcnj.edu. Okay, I think I'm all caught up. I know that was a lot. Again, thank you so much for joining me. These are really the highlight of my summer. I hope to be able to interact with many more of you in the next couple of months, but I think the huge takeaway, hopefully you're not too overwhelmed. I know it was a lot of information, but hopefully your big takeaway tonight is that we're here. We have an office. I love talking on the phone and answering emails. Anything that I can do to help you and your student navigate this process, I am more than happy to do. And I'm just so looking forward to having them come in and, here we go, right? Totally different spot than last year. And totally, I'm sure we'll have some different challenges and whatnot, but we're so glad to have you. Thank you for joining me. Feel free to email anytime. Oh, some Cruise King. I don't know who you are, but I know you're one of my old ones. It's right here. I had the Disney mug tonight. 2017. It was ice cream, not tea. But thank you, everyone. Have a great night. I'll stick around and see if to answer any more questions for the next kind of couple minutes in the chat. But otherwise, you'll get another email from me next week, and I'll see you next Sunday. All right, take care.